right, so first thing I'd like to do is open this meeting today with the pledge. If Gary Stone would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
John Bell, would you lead us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we're grateful to Thee for this day and for the beautiful day it is and for the many blessings we have. We're grateful for our health and strength and ask Thee to bless us with additional health and strength according to our needs. We ask Thee to bless each of us that are here today, that we might travel in safety, those that are traveling distances. See to help us to say and do those things that we need to hear and do. We're grateful for Mr. Blaine for coming and ask Thee to bless him and bless each of us to accomplish the things we need to do. Father, we ask for rain, that we might have additional rains to recharge springs and aquifers, continue to provide grass and water for our cattle, and help us to recognize the importance and need of water in our country and in this area. And we ask these things in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
I'd sure like to thank everybody that's here today. There's been a lot of work going to getting this together, getting everybody here. And one of the people that have really put in a lot of work on this is Representative Jim Townsend. So I'd like to get Mr. Townsend up here and turn this meeting over to him.
Thank you for coming today. I know that there are, well, even after our state engineer speaks today, there will very likely be questions, and I'm sure at the end of his talk that we'll be able to ask questions and try to go through that. There are a number of people here today that have worked hard to make this meeting possible. Yvette, Harold, stand. Yeah. This is one of the few times I get to boss them around, and the next one I'll really enjoy. Representative Candy Spence, Hazel. It's the last time. You can tell I've known her a long time. I forget, called her sometimes. So, also with us, with Congressman Pierce's office, who has been instrumental in helping us, is Peter Barbo. Is that correct? If I have forgotten, we also have Lori Vice, candidate for County Commissioner District 3. If you'd please stand.
The others that are, we have all those that are running for office, we have county commissioners up here.
Okay. I'll just do that because I do not want to miss anyone. If there are any other elected officials that are presently serving or candidates for elected positions, if you would please stand, I would appreciate it.
Current county commissioner, not running.
Okay, you all didn't come to listen to me. Stand up. Most of the time when he's sitting down, most people think he's standing up. So, but you guys didn't come to listen to me or any of the rest of us talk. We came to listen to our state engineer, and so let me have the pleasure of introducing State Engineer Tom Blaine.
What a turnout. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad I'm here. When Representative Townsend asked those that were running to stand up, you know, I stood up. I'm always running from something. But I guess the difference is the candidates are running for something. You know, what we have difficult issues in this state with water. You know, I'm not telling you anything new, not telling you anything different. And there's always two sides to water. And as the final authority and manager of water, a lot of these issues come up to my level that are very difficult, difficult issues that affect people's lives. And I resonate with that effect that water has on each of our lives. You know, there's a saying that all of us have heard, no water, no life. Well, that's really true. You know, I talk from time to time to university students, and one of the things I challenge them to do is to name one thing that water hasn't affected. You know, one thing. You know, you look at the dirt. No, you know, it's been rained on. It's had weather action on it. You know, you look at a car. Well, it takes water to make car. Everything in our lives take water. In New Mexico, we never take water for granted, and we understand the implications that it has on our lives. I grew up in New Mexico. I was 18 months old when my parents moved from Moscow, Idaho to Albuquerque. And you know, one of my first important decisions was to come with them. I feel like a native New Mexican. I went to school here. I graduated from New Mexico State University. I graduated from New Mexico State University. Yay! I spent my whole life here. The very first job I got when I graduated from college, and I got my degree in agricultural engineering. First job I had was with the New Mexico State Engineer Office. And I worked for 8 years under Steve Reynolds. Tremendous icon for water in New Mexico. Some of the early decisions that he made shaped Western water law, and continues to have impacts on how we administer rights and water in this state. One of his one of the things that he's known for is his standing up against the United States Forest Service in water rights issues. That tradition has always been maintained in the Office of State Engineer. Any overreach of the federal government into New Mexico's water law will be met with fierce and aggressive pushback on that overreach. Several months ago, probably nine or 10 months ago, the US EPA was promulgating new rules for the Clean Water Act. And in some of those rules that they were going to impose on the states, every state in the United States, dealt with clean water issues and things that you typically would associate with that. But some of the language in the rules that they were promulgating talk about when surface water goes underground. And it's considered surface water still. We can't have that. We can't have a broad interpretation of rules by the U.S. government that takes control over states' rights. When I heard that they were promulgating these rules, I sat down with my general counsel and the Secretary of the Environment Department, Secretary Flynn, and between Secretary Flynn and myself, we sued the US EPA. And we sued them in the 6th Circuit Court up in North Dakota. We joined with 12 other states in a lawsuit against that to push back on the implementation of those rules. And right now, a judge has stayed any enforcement or any implementation of those rules. So we were effective. Earlier last year, the United States Forest Service tried to intervene in permitting issues for groundwater appropriation in the Ruidoso area, where they wanted to have authority over appropriations of water, groundwater, because of their perceived connection I need to be careful with this, because of their interpretation of appropriating groundwater having an effect on surface water. Now I know that there's conjunctive management of surface and groundwater. We know that when you pump wells, sometimes it has an effect on the surface rights. We know that. But that's the responsibility of the state engineer to ensure that impairment does not occur. And what the federal government, what the U.S. Forest Service wanted to do is be the one that determined and restrict the amount of pumping from wells because of the effects on Eagle Creek. And we said no and pushed back and were successful in getting the Forest Service to back off from any of those claims or any of the enforcement of that. And right now we have they have withdrawn any further action to try to regulate groundwater appropriation in the state. Over the last year, I've come to know what my driving lane is. I know what rules, regulations, statutes, and parts of the Constitution that I'm responsible for and can enforce and regulate. And I'm very careful to stay within those driving lanes, because if I get outside of those lanes, one, I'm not doing my job that I'm sworn to do, to uphold the state constitution and the state statutes of New Mexico. And the other, it causes confusion and misunderstandings if I try to do more than what my job allows me to do. with the United States Forest Service in the designation of the critical habitat, they've identified, I don't know how many areas in the state, but a number throughout the state. There's 5 in the Lincoln area, down here, the Lincoln Forest area. There's designation up in the Mora, New Mexico country, the Jemez, even in the Bosque del Apache. There are spots that the United States Forest Service has identified as being critical for the jumping mouse. We all have our opinions and positions on protection of species and how that should be conducted. And I can assure you there's not one person in here that wants to eliminate a species on this earth. But I think that sometimes the Forest Service gets confused on managing critical habitat and the implications of that and how it affects the allotment holders for the cattle. And sometimes it appears that there is other intentions other than enforcing or protecting a species. It looks like there may be some ulterior motives or another agenda that is at work here. And I understand that. One of the issues that was brought to me last summer was the exclusion areas that were being constructed here in the Sacramento Mountains on Spike Goss's place and down on the Agua Chiquita. And it concerned me. And I came down and looked at that and went through, we spent most of the day walking up and down stream beds looking at what happens when you build these exclusion areas. The grass grows taller and things happen. One of the commitments that I made to the group when I was here is that we would take a look at this exclusion areas, what the Forest Service is doing, and see if we could draw a conclusion. No. Determine if there was a relationship between the habitat for the jumping mouse in the exclusion areas and water flow. So you know, that is me staying in my lane. If there is water depletions that are increased by diversions from anybody, U.S. Forest Service or you know, fellow rancher, anybody that has a diversion in a stream system needs to have a permit for that, unless it's a pre-1907 established right. So I came down to look to see what was going on with the management of the land within these exclusion areas. And I made it very clear at that time, this was last August, I made it very clear last August that I can't get in the lane of managing the federal property. I can't do it. You know, if somebody fences off an area, I don't have any jurisdiction to say you can't force that off, you can't fence that off, you've got to remove the fence. That's not within my purview or my regulations. Now, if the Forest Service is doing something to divert water or impede water, if they have some constructed works then that gets my attention. Because if there's increased depletions to the water system, then that needs to be permitted. So if there's anything that the Forest Service is doing, or private citizen or anybody else that is a man-made structure in a stream system that is causing more depletions, then a permit needs to be obtained for that by transferring rights in from an established area so that the stream system stays in balance. After my visit up here last August, life goes on, and legislative session happened. There was a lot of things going on in my world that I didn't give this the attention that I really wanted to before now. And Representative Townsend and Representative Zell and Representative Harrell, the letter that was presented to me at our meeting that we had a few weeks ago, it not only got my attention, but I think it got national attention. There was a letter that was addressed to me asking me for help in pushing back on the Forest Service in this issue. And primarily it's addressing the exclosure areas throughout the state, not just in this particular area, but everywhere in the state. I need to be very honest with you. I sent my staff down, my hydrologist down a week ago to look at all of the areas that had constructed works in them and to document them and to give an opinion on the effects that they were having. And the effects that were determined show that there's no increased depletions at this point. And I know that does not set well with some people. I know that. But if I take a position that is wrong and can't be substantiated through the data that's out there, and that decision gets overturned, you're worse off than you were before we started this. Trust me, giving news like this is not easy for me. I will do everything I can within the boundaries of the state statutes to push back on the Forest Service in this issue. And with that, I want to turn it over to some questions. I want to listen to your input.
So, based on your statement, what you're saying is all we have to do is sit back and allow the forest to continue to fence off water, and by turn make your office invalid. As long as they can fence the water off, they win because you have then, by your own definition, just made yourself invalid.
No, actually, if the Forest Service fences water off, there's a permit process that we have established and have been successful with to permit the diversion of water for the continued use and for that water for livestock watering. And they're off-channel drinkers.
So to access our own right, we then have to construct something outside of our right. So what you're saying is by owning a pre-1907 water right, and the U.S. government fences it off, the pre-1907 water right is no good.
No,
Because now to access that water right, we have to spend money to buy pumps and pipes to access a right that we have, that our point of diversion is right there. But now we have to create, so all they have to do is keep building fences.
there's no statutory authority that I have that I can exercise that tells the Forest Service you cannot build a fence.
So even if it keeps the people of New Mexico from exercising their water rights?
There's no statutory authority that I have.
So
Blair?
I have two questions. One, what you're saying is if they're impairing somebody's ability to access their water, you have no ability to stop somebody from impairing somebody else from accessing the water. And then two, you're saying that your hydrologist found that there was no impairment to stream flow by rear damming and decreasing the flows coming outside of those exposures and spreading that water out so that it goes underground. That's not having any sort of impairment effect on the people downstream from that. Is that correct?
Larry asked two questions. So the first one was the issue on fencing off a pre-1907 right. And you know, there is nothing in the statutes that allow me to go in and tell somebody how they have to manage their property. Now, Greg Ridgely is my general counsel, and you know, we have looked at this. Looked at the statutes and are trying to come up with a way that our statutes would apply. Greg, can you comment on the Gary, if you want to hear it just from me, I'm okay with that. I'm trying to.
As long as there's a fence, we have no rights. But if there's no fence, then we have a right. Yes? That's what you're saying. With no fence, we have a right. With a fence, we no longer have a right.
No.
You can't do anything, there's a fence there.
No,
so these families can't access their right because somebody built a fence around their right. So therefore, you're not going to protect that right because there's a fence around it.
I can protect the right, but I can't protect access to that right.
So they have no right. If they don't have access to it, they have no right.
Also, this has to do with the location of the right. If I can make one comment, I know you don't want to.
Well, if you're going to say because the right's on a grazing allotment, that's not
what I'm going to
They own the grazing
That's not
allotment.
what I'm going to say. So what this has to do with is.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Let me just make a quick comment about the location of a water right, and I think that's important for the discussion here today. Under New Mexico law, a water right is established by the diversion of water, man-made diversion, right? If I have a water right that I've developed on Forest Service land by a stock tank or some kind of diversion, a box of some kind, I don't think the Forest Service can block my access to the location of my water right. But the water right is not the entire stream, and that's an important distinction. A water right, remember, is a man-made diversion, and the entire stream is not a man-made diversion. So I think if I have a water right established by a man-made diversion of some kind of box or something like that, and the Forest Service blocks off my access by fence, I think I would have a good claim against the Forest Service for access. But it's a different question when you're talking about the whole stream. And the state engineer has a history of working with ranchers in this area to ensure access to water through our water code. And I understand the costs that you identified are a concern. But working within our system of water laws, we can provide solutions and work with everyone in this room who needs them to create off-channel drinkers that will prohibit the Forest Service from blocking your cattle from having access to your water right.
Greg, where is that in statute?
The question is, where is that in statute? This is a simple matter of identifying an existing water right and applying to the state engineer for a change in point of diversion in place of use to an off-channel drinker. We've done it once already, issued a permit to that effect to allow folks to have their cattle have access to an off-channel drinker. So it's through the change in place and purpose of use statute that the state engineer can issue a permit like this.
In your office, two attorneys looked right at Spike's house, you and Chris Medine, and said, Spike, your water right is a pre-1907 water right. Now you're saying to access a pre-1907 water right, he has to put a pipe and take it a mile down the road? So then what happens if they decide to build a fence around that? He's got to pay for more pipe and another drinker to go a mile down the road again?
Better yet, and not because I don't think he can answer that question. I think we'd very much like to hear how, and I think everybody in here has got enough common sense. I have a degree in geology. I'm not even relying on that. I'm relying on common sense. If you have people that are putting weir dams into a stream, which they've done on these over here, and I'm sure these people here would be happy to show you where they've done that. You have elk in there drinking and using the water. You have increased the vegetation, and there is not nearly as much water coming out of the spring as it's making it outside of the exposure. How is that not an impairment to stream flows? How did your hydrologist reach that conclusion?
The construction of the weir dams that you talk about, Blair, are, you know, I've got photographs of them, and we can look at them. If those dams create a backup of the water and pooling of the water upstream from that structure, then it's impairing it. I don't see evidence of that in the photographs that we see.
Mr. State Engineer, I think we need to have your hydrologist back in. I have pictures of the elk wallows where that's spread out, where there's big ponds, where the elk have been in there drinking and that water's held up. And you're not putting a diversion in of those weir dams and then not have some sort of effect. They have them in there. There's no way, hydrologically speaking, this is not impairing downstream flows. Mr. Mershon, just down the stream, probably is not getting as much water for his pre-1907 irrigation rights as is everybody down the river from that point. Yes, it may be seeping in, and some of it may be coming out somewhere else in the hydraulic system. But right there, all those people, those pre-1907 senior water rights that your office is charged to protect, they're not getting their water anymore because the Forest Service is stealing it in these exposures.
When they brought that, when that crew come up here, they left Rossville at 8 o'clock. There's no way, I know where everything is, and there is no way that I could walk that in one day. And Mr. State, they left there at 8 o'clock, and they were back in there by quitting time, were they not? They didn't see nearly what they needed to see.
And Mr. State Engineer, you made a promise to me that if this concern was raised, Mr. Bell raised this concern, we often have people there. You made a promise to me that I could convey to these people that if your guys didn't find it, that you'd help us have them go back out there and we could show them this. We'd like to collect on that now. They need to go back out there because this is not acceptable.
In response to that, Mr. Dunn, I'll come out with them. You know, I am not trying to sidestep this issue. Believe me. Please.
The Forest told you to your face that their whole purpose of the enclosures was to spread the water out and impair downstream flow. And you didn't care enough to come back for 7 months till we got 50 legislators in your office.
Mr. Dunn, like I said, I'll come out personally when the hydrologists come back out and meet with folks again. Representative
Odie.
Along with what Blair said, your study is premature. You claim there's no increased depletion. Before the Forest Service built those exposures, the water flowed. There's been a complete depletion. The water's stopped.
And Mr. City Engineer, in your defense, you did make me that promise, and I appreciate that. If you're going to honor it, we appreciate that too. But I will tell you, for everybody here, it is going to take you being here because we don't trust your attorneys and we don't trust your staff.
My staff is, I'm sorry, I trust them. And if there's a trust issue, then we need to work on that. But I will take personal responsibility for that.
Tom, I'm a little bit amazed. I was hopeful when you came today and when you wanted to have a meeting in Weed that we weren't going to hear more of the same. And I feel, quite frankly, that I ought to apologize to a community that turned out to come here absolutely nothing. And for you to come tell us that there's nothing you can do, quite frankly, is not acceptable. I don't think that's and I want to make sure that you understand that I respect you and your position, but I am absolutely astounded that you come here as a state engineer and offer no constructive measures to allow people to utilize a pre-1907 water right. I mean, I understand that you say that it's not state property, but I hope you understand that you have recognized those pre-1907 rights in a lot of places, and we expect you to recognize them here. So, how would you suggest, and what would be the position that you would support that would allow these allotment holders to get that water outside of the fence in a manner that allowed them to utilize it? I mean, how would you do it, and what would you suggest that they do, and how would you get, and how would you help them enforce those?
Representative, as I understand the question, pre-1907 water rights that were established on these stream systems, in light of the exclosures, how do we get the water out of the exclosures and to the cattle? I mean, that would be an engineering process. We would just have to look at and design that on each one.
No, I don't want to beat around the bush.
Okay.
I want you to tell me, will you permit the amount of water that these people own